Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back once again to another episode of the Harbor Trust Financial Podcast. My name is Shane, and I'm joined by my co-host as usual, Phil. And today we've got a pretty interesting one. I think this is a popular demand one more than anything. Everybody wants to get rich quick, and what's the quickest way to get rich, Phil? It's to invest in stocks and cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and penny stocks.
You can.
Yeah, you can.
At the beginning of it.
You can, yeah, you can. And it certainly has happened. But people paint the picture of investing like that's it. That's what it is, and that's where it ends. And that's the dream, is to hit that lucky stock that goes boom, and you end up a millionaire, and you get to retire, and never think about it.
I want to look good on Instagram.
I want to look great on Instagram. You can buy that Ferrari and post it on your story every single day if you want to.
Do video on the beach and tell people to buy my program.
Exactly. But one of the most important things and misconceptions, I would say, when it comes to investing is that investing is not that for most people, and in fact it's not like that for the very vast majority of people, and people kind of get scared to jump into it because they have this illusion that that's what investing is. And today we're going to demystify that. Today we're going to talk about just how to start investing, the 101, the basics, what it is, what are the strategies that are actually sustainable, that are actually going to bring you some results. I can tell you right now that I can't guarantee a level of results for a client, but I most certainly can guarantee results. And it's all about the habit. It's all about consistency. It's all about being smart about it. And honestly, nowadays, the way that cryptocurrency goes and the way that people are trying to learn about stocks, I mean, there's obviously the big highlight stocks that are great, but investing a bunch of money into cryptocurrency that you don't understand, or it's basically gambling at this point. There's some certain cryptocurrencies that are stabilizing and that are obviously very popular. You talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatnot. But there's obviously those people that are way, way too deep into it, and they end up shooting themselves in the foot, not knowing what they're getting into, because after a certain point, and the same goes for specific stocks, if you don't know what you're doing, you're basically gambling. That's
There's
not
just a lot of volatility.
There's just a lot of volatility involved, and it's definitely not a sustainable strategy. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why it's important to invest for Canadians. I mean, the point of investing is growing wealth, planning for retirement. If you have a project, right, there's got to be a reason why. There's got to be a purpose behind your investment. You can't just do it. I mean, you can do it to build wealth, right? But the point isn't just to get rich as fast as possible. When you're investing, you're definitely working towards a goal. And today we're gonna unpack that a bit more. So basics. What is investing?
Well, you can invest into either a registered account, a non-registered account, putting some money aside. Right. Start gaining some interest, invest into some of the funds,
right?
That you can either invest in on your own, or you can go through a financial institution to help you with that,
right?
But the basically is taking your earned money, put into an account so it can grow long term.
That's right.
That you can have access to either for future projects, buying a home, retirement,
right?
Buying an income property, whichever it is.
It's putting your money to work. And I always tell my clients, you are working very hard for your money. Why shouldn't your money be working very hard for you? And that's a really, really interesting topic. And the reason why I mention that, putting money aside is one thing. That is saving money. Investing it is another thing. People could say, well, I just don't want to know about this. I don't want to take any risks. I think I've seen too many horror stories about investing. I heard during COVID, my uncle lost like a quarter of what he had in his accounts because he was invested. So I'm never going to invest because that's too risky for me. So I'm just going to keep putting money aside in my bank account, and I won't invest it. And that's going to be fine. And I'll keep raising my funds. What is happening, Phil, if I'm putting money in a bank account with no interest? And I'm putting, let's say, $100 a paycheck in that account, so I'm gaining money, right?
Not short term, but long term, you're going to lose due to inflation.
There you go. It's the very, very important misconception is that if your money is not in interest, it's not gaining interest, you're losing money. And the default is your dollar will lose value over time because of inflation. We've heard a lot about inflation and how it got crazy over the last couple of years. inflation going down doesn't mean your dollar is gaining value again. It just means your dollar is losing value slower. Inflation going down doesn't mean the costs of things are going down. It just means they're getting more expensive less fast. So by default, around the clock, if your money's not invested into some form of interest, you are losing money day to day.
And a lot of people will tend to find that they'll have some money aside, but they don't want to invest because they're afraid to lose money. What if the market crashes? What if I won't have any more gains? So, and we're going to talk throughout the podcast about the risk tolerance, because we could place money, or somebody could put money into a fund that, I don't want to say it's guarantee, but there's some track record over many, many years that how the stock market has performed. You're going to have some dips. Like you're gonna get some highs as well, but these are all need to be explained properly to the client before they even start putting money into it.
And I think the key part there is more about understanding what you're getting into, and that's why we typically recommend consulting with a financial advisor at all times when you're going towards making a decision like this. I actually saw a very interesting statistic. We're going to talk about risk levels later on, like you said, Phil. And there's 5 tiers of risks. So there's very, very prudent, there's very safe, there's moderately safe, then there's balanced, and then there's a growth portfolio, and then there's a very risky, aggressive portfolio. So those are 5 tiers. And balanced, right down the middle, is a pretty safe place to invest in a balanced portfolio, either a mutual fund or segregated fund. I've seen an interesting statistic where people who manage their own investments, let's say through those apps that you can download, like a Wealth Simple or Quick Trade or Quest Trade or
IA Financial Group.
IA Financial Group, yes, but you also get an advisor with that, so it's kind of ideal. But the thing is that when those people that manage their own investments and pick their own stocks, on average in Canada, will gain less than just a normal average Joe balanced portfolio. On average, you will lose money if you think you can do it in your own hands and you're not an expert and you're not a professional at it. The odds are you're going to make less money than your buddy who's not even thinking about it. He's never even looking at it, but he's just in a balanced portfolio. He will gain more, or she will gain more on average than you who wants to take it into their own hands and become your own guru and make your own. Some people are great at it. Some people are very knowledgeable, but on average, it's recommended that is a bad idea. The basics of investing. We're going to talk about what we have in the Canadian landscape. You mentioned that, Phil. Tax-free savings accounts. There's lots more, but we're going to go at the 3 main ones that typically you'll start investing in. We'll not dive too deep in this, but registered accounts are accounts that have rule sets to them. That they're offered by the Canadian Revenue Agency. They're designed and created for Canadians. And non-registered accounts are basically every single account that you can put money in that is not registered. That isn't through the CRA. So a tax-free savings account is a registered account. TFSA. Tax-free savings account just means that there's literally no tax implications on the account. If you put money into it, you can invest it, you can grow it, and you can pull it out anytime without paying a dime of tax. People confuse this with the RRSP and then assume I'm never going to invest because if I pull my money out, I'm going to get taxed. Well, yeah, of course you're going to get taxed because a RRSP is a registered retirement savings plan. If you're not putting that money aside for retirement, there is literally not a single reason to validate putting money into an RRSP. If you're not willing to put that money aside until you retire, it should not be in an RRSP, and that's where people get caught. And they say, they're going to tax. I get taxed when I get paid. I put it in the account, and then when I want to pull it out, let's say next year, I'm going to get taxed on it again. So I think investing is stupid. I'm not going to go as far as saying you're stupid, but anyway, that's not a good way of, it's uneducated. It's not the way that it works. There's other accounts that are designed for that. The RRSP does exactly the same as the TFSA, except when you pull it out, you're taxed as an income. The point of the RRSP is to pay yourself out when you retire. It's an income, so you need to pay taxes on income. But by the time that you pull your money out, you would have gained so much on interest that tax payment is no longer relevant in the equation. The money you're putting into it makes sense if you use it for retirement. If you're not willing to use it for retirement or wait for retirement, it will not make sense to be in an RRSP. And non-registered is just no rules, except there's taxes involved. You can put money in, you can pull money out. It's a free-flowing account as much as you want. But if you pull money out, you're not taxed on it. However, if you gain on it, you will pay capital gains tax on it. So typically, it's 50%. They just increased it to 66% if it's over $250,000. But we're going to talk on an average level here. Nobody's making $250,000 on investment returns per year on the average Canadian income. So if you're making any gains on a non-registered account, you'll have to take half of those gains. Let's say I made $100 in interest profits in my non-registered account. $50 of that $100 will then be added on top of my income, and I will pay my income tax bracket on that $50. That's all that means.
And what if, is there a maximum contribution that somebody could be making in their TFSA or their RRSP?
Absolutely, right? So we hear about maximums and limits. The TFSA has a fixed maximum amount. As of the age of 18, that amount grows every year and it accumulates. So it's usually between 5,000 and 10,000. Yearly, it's been over 10,000. It's been under 5,000, but it's typically in that bracket. And it's the same increase for every single Canadian. So if in 2025 this area decides they're going to increase it to $7,000, then it's going to be a $7,000 increase on everybody in Canada's limit if they are 18 years of age and older. So
yeah, as of today, I think the maximum contribution, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe is $7,400 right now.
Okay.
But you can backtrack, like you're saying.
So year over year.
Yeah, if they've never contributed. Yeah. And where can they go see that?
So if you sign into your Canadian Revenue Agency account in your online portal, it's on the front page. As soon as you log in, if you scroll all the way down that page, both of your TFSA and RRSP contribution limits will be there. The RRSP contribution limit is a bit different. It goes with the amount of money you make per year. It's a fixed percentage of your annual income. It's 18% to be exact of your annual income. Every year, whatever that 18% represents will be tacked on top of your limit. It'll increase your ceiling by that amount year over year, and that also accumulates as you get through the years. For non-registered, there's no limits. Non-registered is just a non-registered account, hence why taxation is a factor in non-registered accounts.
What would be like an example of a non-registered account?
Well, there is no example. It's just called a non-registered account. It could be a savings account at the bank, a checking account. It's anything that isn't registered with the CRA. It's a just non-registered, and that means that there's no limits. Typically a checking account. I've not heard of a checking account that can be invested. So usually
a checking account would be non-registered.
But you can't really. I don't know if there's some banks that offer some fixed interest on a checking account, but typically
that's just within the banks.
Yeah, it's
just having that money in the banks, and it's like, thanks for banking with us. We'll give you 0.2%.
Well, we'll give right. So and then there's other banks that offer a bit more, but there's then the non-registered and typical. It's somebody who wants to put money somewhere and have the option to pick where in the market they want to invest it. So
yeah. Good points.
Setting goals.
Yeah. Setting investment goals.
Why is it important?
Well, people have goals in life. They want to buy a home.
Right.
Eventually, I'm sure people would like to retire.
Sure. That sounds nice.
Buy a cottage.
That sounds really nice.
Plan a vacation.
Oh, geez.
Without goals.
Settle down. Things are too expensive now, Phil. Come on now. Gee whiz, you're painting it too high.
But it's important to have goals, and everybody does have goals. We talk about putting good goals in place, and we help people achieve their goals depending on how much money they would like, or having projections. We have financial calculators. But one thing we talk about is SMART goals. And SMART goals, if you've never heard about it, we're talking about specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and a timely manner as well.
Right.
And if you've never seen it or is the first time hearing about it, look up SMART goals in the definition, and then there's definition on each segment as well. But each segment will be able to help you achieve your goal. Is it a specific goal? Is this something that is measurable? Is this something that is attainable?
Right.
You know, you're making, I'm going to throw numbers here, making $50,000, $55,000, $60,000 a year, but you want to have $3 million by the time you retire, and you're retiring in 10 years.
Right.
Can you measure that? Right?
Is that realistic?
Is that realistic? Is that attainable? Listen, I'll be optimistic, but there's definitely the things that needs to be changed in the yearly income, or what's the thing? Is there business ideas? Is there what's going on, right? Yeah. So I'll stay optimistic on that side, but is there a roadmap to get to that 3 million before they retire and whatnot? But the importance of having clear and measurable goals. Each goal, if it's something that somebody wants to buy a home in 5 years. Right? So, okay, we'll have financial calculators. There's going to be different account. Like one account comes to mind right away as a FHSA, right? The first home savings account.
Which is another registered account, like the RRSP, like the TFSA. The FHSA is a account designated for people who want to buy their first home. That the purpose behind that account. So it's important to set that goal and align with an account that is meaningful for your goal.
And each goal will come with as well some risk tolerance as well.
Right, because we're investing.
Investor profile that we do with each client to make sure that we give the right portfolio to the right person with the right goal. Someone who wants to buy a home in the next 5 years and they invest into an FHSA, they might not be in a aggressive portfolio, the top tier of it, because 5 years is still short term. Someone who wants to retire, they're in their 20s, they're in their 30s, maybe even early 40s, we can put them into aggressive portfolio because retirement is not going to be until 55, 60, 65, the age they desire.
Right.
So each investor profile will be different according to each goals. Right. So that's why we ask a lot of goals. We go through what they want to accomplish, where they want to go, what they want to buy. Do they have any family goals, personal goals, work goals, whichever it is? And we have sections that we talk about when we do a financial needs analysis. But making sure we identify those clear goals, very important on that side.
Absolutely. Well, what are the factors that would influence the risk tolerance? So we talked about 5 levels of risk. We talked about there's the extremely safe, there's in the middle between balanced and safe, there's balanced, there's growth and then there's aggressive and very very focused on risk. So how do we identify that, and what are the factors that influence that? So what are the determining factors?
Yeah, well, first of all, we need to identify, is this a short-term or long-term goal?
Right.
Okay, that's the first thing. And by determining either a short-term or long-term goal, we'll be able to associate the right portfolio for them. When did they want to take the money out? What is going to be the use for? What type of return we can go and get for the client as well. Is it for saving for a home, retirement, education, wealth building, whichever it is for, we'll be able to associate the right portfolio and the right rate of return. And talking about rate of return, there's track record, as I was saying earlier, with that. So we can pull up certain funds. We have access to over 1,200 funds, and we can pull up each fund, and there's predetermined funds that we have internally with the company as well, we have fiscalists that builds these plans for people depending on which goal and depending on which investor profile within those 5 barriers that you're talking about, Shane. But then we can pull out some track record of what has that fund has performed over the last 10 years, over the last 3 years, 1 month, and whatnot. And will this fund be able to fulfill the goal of the client? Because if they're looking at something short term, like let's say buying a home, and in 5 years, and we put them into an aggressive or growth portfolio, well, we know growth and aggressive portfolio will have a lot more volatility.
Right.
So that's why this got to be more of a balance portfolio, in order to make sure there's not too much of dips within the next five years. But looking at something more long term, now we have the time to play with the volatility of the fund. Therefore, so we can go get more gains.
Right.
Sometimes we can go get more money, but sometimes we can lose some money. But when we look at the stock market from over the time, there's an average of 10% return on it, right? So when you put your money, put it in there every 2 weeks, every month, every week, whatever, you're putting a little bit into it at a time, and you'll leave it there and you start creating a habit for it, you're going to be able to achieve and get your gains you need and according to your goals.
Absolutely. And I think some really important topics there, and other on risk tolerance there, like there's other factors as well that need to be taken in account, right? So if you have a high net worth, let's say, if you already have a high buffer of available money, of assets, well, that's obviously going to influence your risk tolerance. You're obviously able to take on a hit if you have a higher net worth. But if you're just getting started, and let's say, for example, that this account is supposed to be an emergency fund, like this is money that you're putting aside if something goes sideways, if something like really urgently needs money to be pulled out, you have an account for it. Well, I highly recommend that account stays away from volatile markets, because what happens with volatile markets is that it can gain 20 to 30% tomorrow. It can also lose 20 to 30% tomorrow.
Yep.
That's why we do that for the long term, because if we lose 20 to 30% tomorrow, we have another 10, 15, 20, 30 years of gains to recover that with. So what? Like, you're fine. But if an emergency happens next week, but the week prior the market took a hit and you're down 25% and you don't have all of the money that you were supposed to have if an emergency happens, that's not a smart way of doing it. And that's where people end up in really bad situations. They share it with their friends and their family, and they talk about it, and they say how horrible investing is because look what happened to them. And it's not because investing is horrible. It's just that they didn't do it the right way. They were not informed or educated. They didn't get the right advice from a licensed professional like ourselves, and they went into it blind, and they ended up taking a hit. So the point is to avoid that at all costs. For our next topic, just to start wrapping up here, how do you get started? Identify your goal. We just talked about it. Identify your goal. What is the purpose of me putting money aside? Start small. Don't go all in. Understand your budget and understand what you have available to you month to month. What's coming in, what's coming out, is that consistent? And what portion of, if there's anything left, because if there's nothing left, then you're not in a position where you can invest. But if there is something left, what portion of that can you safely tuck aside, and at what frequency? So is it weekly, bi-weekly? Is it monthly that you can put $100 aside, $200, $300 aside? And you choose your investment vehicle, RSP, for if you want it to be for retirement. Another thing RSP does, by the way, it also reduces your income. If I make 50 grand a year and I put 10 grand in my RSP, well, I'm only going to claim 40 grand at the end of the year to the CRA. I'm only going to pay taxes on 40 grand, even though I made 50. But because I put 10K in my RSP, I can deduct that off my income and pay less income tax. So RSP allows you to do that. TFSA doesn't. But if you want the TFSA, then you pick that, because if your purpose is shorter term, vacations, emergency fund, just wealth growth in general, TFSA is a great vehicle for it. So you pick that, pick your consistency, pick which contribution you're willing to make, and then automate it. Don't tell yourself, I'm going to put this aside every week, because I can promise you won't. I will bet you my entire career you won't. It will not last, and it will not get you to where you want to be. Is it $100 that is safe to put aside? Then make it, automate it, sign it up. Every single company that does finances in Canada should be able to do this for you, where you can automate from your banking account, your checking account, a certain day of the week or a certain day of the month, that amount is going to be put into this account that will be invested for you at this risk tolerance, because we understood, we analyzed your risk tolerance, so we associated a fund that makes sense for you. That is the best way to get started. And to do that, I highly recommend you reach out to a licensed financial advisor. For the most part, from what I know, we don't charge to consult. Some people do, but find an advisor that you trust, that you know is going to take the time to sit with you and explain these things to you and understand you, to point you in the right direction. But what I just said is the path of least resistance. It is the smartest way of getting started. Identify a goal, pick which account makes the most sense, and if you don't want to do that alone, talk about it with your advisor. I do a budget, identify what you have left at the end of the month, and pick an amount that you will consistently put aside, and then pick the frequency in which you want to put that aside. Understand your risk tolerance, and you're good to go.
One key point I'd just like to add to this, you mentioned, if you reach out to a financial advisor to help you, if you do, ask them to show you the number, show you the projection.
Yeah.
Don't base yourself and just trust that advisor. I tell people, trust me, yes, okay, but don't trust necessarily my word because I'm going to show you.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
A financial advisor can lie, numbers don't.
Exactly.
Right?
And any credible financial advisor, any legitimate licensed financial professional will show you those numbers. Red flag if they don't, and be aware of that. So
or just say, trust me. We'll
yeah,
do it.
trust me.
No.
I don't.
No,
don't
this
don't
is your
trust anybody.
hard earned money.
It's your money.
Yeah.
Who do you trust with your money? Tell yourself that. If you wouldn't give access to your checking account to that individual, then why would you trust their word on what to do with your money?
Trust Shane.
Yeah, trust me. But no, it's really important, Phil, and that was a really great point. So start now. When's the best time to start? Now. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the more money you lose. Every time you wait a week, that's a week's worth of interest that you didn't make on your money. And weeks go by quick, and they accumulate quick, and that interest does as well. Money does something called the compound effect when you invest over a long period of time, hence the importance of consistency over saying, I'm going to save up $1,000 in my checking account, and then when I have it, I'm going to put it in. No. Save up $1,000 in your investment account, because every dollar that you put into that account, the sooner it's in that account, the quicker it gets interest, and the higher the volume of your contributions. 5% of $10,000 is not the same thing as 5% of $10. So beef up that account as fast as possible and feel that compound effect. The higher the volume of your contribution over a long period of time, the more you'll benefit from that same rate of return.
There's two things I'd like to mention on that, because these are very important points to start. And unfortunately, there's some people that are stuck that they don't know how to start. And my advice to them is start small. Start taking 5% of what you earn weekly.
Right.
Just even to start, 5%, that's not the goal to be at. You'd like to be at 20,
right.
30% of your income coming in, and you put that aside. If you can get to 50% and live on 50% of your income, like, hey,
that's
kudos to you.
But that's
right.
Yeah.
But so start small, or start with a $50 bi-weekly, or even if it's $50 a month. If you're strapped financially, unfortunately, there's a lot of Atlantic Canadians, they're living paycheck to paycheck. But if you take that small amount and start small, 5% or $50 or $25, and you might say, well, what's the point if I invest even $20? The point is you're creating a habit.
That's right.
Once you start creating a habit, now it becomes normal. It becomes just as normal as getting up in the morning, brush your teeth, have breakfast, make coffee. It just becomes a routine.
That's right.
And then you're knowing that you live on 95% of your income. Once you start getting comfortable, move up to 10%.
Absolutely.
And then move up. Oh, you got a promotion? Don't go buy a nicer car, right? Let's look at how can we optimize to have a better net worth.
That's right.
How can we optimize to have a better future for yourself, or saving for that project, or saving for that home, or saving for that vacation, or whatever it is, or buying that cottage, buying that duplex, buying whatever it is. And instead of going by liabilities, let's focus on building your asset column. So we start small on that side, because a lot of people they're stuck and they don't know. The second part, you might be somebody who has a lot of money in the bank account, and what they're afraid of is losing that money, so they just have in that bank account and it's not moving.
Right.
I've had some cases that some people, they said, yeah, we're going through the financial needs analysis. Is I have $100,000 in my bank account. Excuse me?
Yeah, we've seen that.
Right? There's another director of sales too. We're talking with. He's seen what was it, like
over
$400,000 in the bank account.
In a checking account.
I mean, holy! But he has been accumulated like for 30 years or whatnot, and never investing. But
think about the amount of money that person lost.
Yeah,
because of not investing it. That's crazy.
But we can't change it. We can't change the past, but we can definitely optimize and change the future, right? So and starting to do that. But the point is there's some people out there that has large amount of the money, and the reason why they're not investing is they're afraid of losing. But some things that people need to understand is there's different accounts.
Yeah. There's different investments.
There's different investment strategy.
Yeah.
You can go the absolute safe way and put that money into at least a high interest savings account.
That's guaranteed interest.
It's guaranteed interest. You can't lose.
It's not high, but it's
guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
The banks are going to be like, there's going to be some banks that's going to be attractive, that it's going to be like, oh, come with us, put your money with us. We're going to give you 5%, 6%. But be careful because it's only for a certain amount.
It's like 3 months.
3 months. Some are 6 months. Yeah. With us, it's pretty stagnant. We're looking at some 4.5, 4.25, 4.5%. Sometimes go up to 4.75% into our high interest savings account. So which is ours is high comparing to the Canadian industry, because banks, and then after the 5%, after the 4%, they're going to go down to 1.85%.
Right.
They're going to go down to 1%. They're going to go down to 2.25%. So we got to be careful with that. But banks are smart. What you do is you're creating a habit for the next 3 months, 6 months. You're already the money there. While it's there, might as well don't want to move it.
Right.
Because you've created a habit. So they're very intelligent in their marketing way on how they do certain things. But it's your money. Move it as you please. And there's no fees as well. A lot of people think by putting that money in there, it's going to be locked in. Not necessarily. It's going to be locked in if you put into a GIC, which is a guaranteed or GIF, a guaranteed income fund, right? When you put that in there, it's going to be locked in for 1 year. 3 years, 5 years. Yes, there's going to be penalty fees when you want to get it out. But there's other accounts like the high interest savings account. One is guaranteed, like you mentioned, and also there's no penalty fees when you take it out. What's your contribution room? That guy who had $400,000 in his bank account never invested, or that person who had over $100,000 or $100,000 in their bank account never invested. If we look up their CRA account, there's going to be a lot of contribution room, and if you've got a high income as well, that's going to help you reduce your income taxation time. Absolutely. If you pay into money, maybe you won't pay into money. Maybe you're going to get some money back because you're lowering that tax bracket of yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the two things are very important that I would like to add. It was those who, let's say they're strapped, but on the other side, those who has a lot of money. There's two ways here we could start playing and make sure that your money could be either start getting interest on guarantees, and also on the other hand to start creating a habit. And even with the other side, if you've never invested, start creating those habits. Very important.
Absolutely, Phil. And when the best time to start? It's right now. Go get informed. Find somebody, some formative advisor to Google. Go on Google, find somebody who's willing to meet with you. We certainly are, for absolutely free to consult and just have a conversation about this and answer questions personally. I think it's important to do that before getting into any form of investment strategies. But this covers a pretty good overview of Investing 101 and how to get started. Fun one. And most certainly was a fun one. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. We always keep an eye on it in case anybody has any specific questions, which we want to make sure we answer them. And aside from that, we're easily findable. You can reach out to us on our social medias as well. And as always, my name is Shane. Today we were joined by Phil, my co-host, and this was the Harbor Trust Financial Podcast. We will see you next week.
Bye-bye, everybody.